So again, it's great to meet you for the first time. Thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Nice to meet you as well.
So I looked you up, of course, and I see that your title is Principal Product Manager. What is
Yeah.
that? Can you explain what that is? I have no
Yeah.
idea.
Well, I think that, yeah, and I understand why you have no idea because I think it's different for every company. Like the term product manager means different things to different people. We were used to be called program managers, but the industry
Mm,
kind of adopted product manager. So what it is like it's a technical role in the engineering org. So whether it's, if you work on the Windows team or Office, or as I do on the Visual Studio team, you work with the engineers, but you're the PM. And so the responsibility of the PM, again, it varies from team to team and
yeah.
all, even from PM to PM, but it's basically the person that, understand the users, sets the roadmap, works with the engineering to build the features that they want, they design the features, often with the users. And so it's a very kind of user focused role. And it's also there's some project management in it as well. Like, because you want to make sure you have the release notes that go out at the right time when you release the features
Yeah.
that you've helped build and all that stuff, the go to market stuff. So there's a bunch of project management, but as a PM, you can kind of, as you find out where your passions lie and where your interests are over time, you can put yourself on the spectrum where you might have project management on one end of the spectrum and like highly technical stuff on the other side, like built maybe like to the point where you build the features yourself to an
Oh, okay.
extent.
Yeah.
And you find yourself where are you the most happy and most effective on that spectrum? And so I think that's why when you ask that question and I say, oh, well, it depends. I think it depends on where you are. And there might be other pivots as well. It might not be just the project management versus technical. There might be others, things as well you can put yourself on. So I'd look at myself as somewhat closer to the technical and less on the project management. So I'm very involved with the users, very much out there, conferences and
Yeah.
social media and stuff, and listening and understanding and being the internal advocate of the user. So I take all that feedback into the teams and help build Visual Studio in accordance to what the users need, both what they tell me they need today, but what I can understand they probably will need in the future as well, which is, it becomes an art form at that point.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing that for Visual Studio?
For over 15 years now.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh, that's very cool.
And I was an
Okay.
engineer before. So I came from the world of like, I was a Visual Studio user for 10 years before I joined Microsoft, in startup companies and all that. So I used to be the people I'm building
Yeah.
Visual for today, right? So
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. And I noticed that you build still a lot because when I look for an extension, your name shows up a lot with all
yeah,
sorts of extensions.
yeah, I can't not because it's the shortest. If I have an idea and I don't know if it's a good idea or not, or I don't know if my vision of how it should work or be implemented is right or wrong, then the fastest way is to like create it and then give it to the user and say, hey, what do you think?
Mm, yeah.
And then figure out how do they use it? What are the patterns? What don't they like? And then accept pull requests and comments and, issues
Yeah.
on GitHub so that it becomes like a fast feedback loop. And then very quickly, I can go back to the team and say, hey, look, I made an experiment. We iterated on it. These were the issues. Here were the fixes. Here's where we still have some opportunity for improvement, blah, blah, blah. And so that kind of replaces a spec,
Yeah.
or it
Yeah.
or it helps the spec because it's like it literally shows the screens, the
Yeah.
click stops, everything like that, right? It's like a highly advanced mock-up that you would normally maybe give to an engineering team.
Oh, I never thought of it that way, but that makes so much sense. It's like a proof of concept of something that you think people want, and then you actually make it and people can directly use it without actually baking it into the product.
Yeah, and sometimes we do bake it into the product. It starts its life like that. It
Yeah.
might have been something that's been on a feature request for a long time, And then I'm like, okay, now I have a need for it, or I have a vision for how we can do it the right way. And so I go ahead and build it. And that can be the beginning of a way to build something in, or it can just be a way to say, hey, there's a bunch of people that want it. Let me just provide them that right now. And it could be years down the line before it reaches a priority level that we want to build it in.
Yeah.
Because of other reasons. So there's not always a one-to-one like in the here and now. Sometimes it takes years for it to be relevant to the team to bring in, but then we already have years of like refinement and iteration that makes it a super high quality.
Yeah, and people actually using it. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that is so cool. And then, so you come up with everything, maybe with colleagues as well, product managers. Are you the only one
Yeah,
for
no,
Visual Studio?
no. There's a bunch. We have a lot more engineers than we have PMs and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
There's definitely a thing as too many PMs. So I think we've already had a kind of a lean PM team, but I think it's leaner now, which is it works out pretty well. So yeah, we're like on the PM side, on the core Visual Studio team, I think we're about, I don't even know. I'm just gonna give you a number, 12 PMs.
Wow.
But that includes like PM managers as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Of which we don't have that many, like 2 or 3. But then you have all the other teams that also contribute into Visual Studio that are not part of the core team. So for instance, the .NET team and the C++ team.
Okay.
Now they build the runtimes, right? And they build all the CLI stuff, and they build VS Code extension, and they do all sorts of other things, but they have dedicated engineers and PMs that work on Visual Studio tooling for .NET and for C++ and so on.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so they're PMs for Visual Studio as well. They're just not part of the core team. So if you like kind of combine it all, I'm sure we're about like, I don't know, 25 PMs, and that goes up and down depending on where people are needed in the moment. Sometimes you move and do something else. You come back and do other features and so on. Or you have teams that come in and say, hey, we're gonna build an Azure feature into Visual Studio, but then when we're done, we're gonna move on and do something else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're only part of the team for like, let's say 2 months, and then they're elsewhere.
Okay. So it's a huge organization just for Visual Studio alone. I didn't realize that.
No, it's not. Well, depends
It
on what you mean by
sounds big.
huge. Yeah, but it depends what you mean by huge. I don't see it as such. We used to say we're 250 people, but it comes in waves because as I wasn't what I was just mentioning. But I don't know if we're more than 150 today, which is big for one product. But when you consider that Visual Studio is one of the largest software products in the world,
Yeah.
by far the biggest WPF app, right? And maybe .NET app as well.
Yeah.
But just in general, like we don't even know how many lines of code we got, but it's in the millions and millions and millions.
Yeah. Okay, so very important, and I guess a huge install base. Like, do you have kind of a guesstimate of how many people use this?
Oh yeah, we're in the double-digit millions.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And the number is not, you would think maybe that, nowadays everyone is just using, Claude Code or, CLI or Copilot CLI or VS Code or, Cursor, or because those products and the users of them are very loud and dominant on social media. You would think that Visual Studio numbers are going down, but they're not. They're going up.
They're going up. Oh, that's good.
Yep. Visual Studio is actually very, very healthy. Even though you don't hear as much about it. It's not as visible maybe as it used to be because it drowns out a little bit in all this, especially nowadays with all the AI, like in all the hysteria of that. And so, but no, Visual Studio is doing quite phenomenally, and I think has found a really sweet spot in the world of, AI versus like people who either don't want to use it or just use it occasionally, or who are not allowed to use it because of, security or whatever concerns their organization might have, right?
Yeah.
So Visual Studio is somewhere in between where like it's getting really good at AI, the way Visual Studio does it is a little bit different than the others, and that's on purpose because we have a different cohort of users than others. Like VS Code, for instance, has to be pretty broad. Like whether you're a student or data scientist, beginner, advanced, web developer, backend developer, game developer, like they target pretty much everybody very generally. Visual Studio is very narrow. It's like professional developers, C# and C++. That's what we go for. Enterprise often, because it's the pro developer segment. And so the concerns and the habits and the priorities of that cohort is just different. And so the way we lean into that has been kind of unique, I think, in the industry, and it being pretty successful because we're really good at both doing the AI stuff, and we have to be loud about that. And so some people are like, oh, it's everything is about AI in Visual Studio. It's like, no, it's not. We're actually really good at doing a bunch of features that has nothing to do with AI. And so we do both. And we do that with quite the success. So doesn't mean that we're perfect or that we don't have any room to improve, of course, but it means that I think we found finally a sweet spot where we can cater to both the people who use AI every day, all day long, and the people who don't use it at all and anywhere in between, as long as they're pro C# and C++.
Yeah, that makes me very happy to hear that it is still going strong and even going up. Because I am a Visual Studio user from back in the day, always did Visual Studio, and then VS Code came out, and I was like, I need to do so much myself, extensions, CLI stuff, terminal. Okay, it's not my thing. I like Visual Studio, so I like to see things and click on it, and do things in a simple way. Like debugging is a very strong thing, for instance, in Visual Studio. It's easy to make things run. You just click the button and it starts to run. That's what I like. I like that a lot. And like you said, AI, I use that a lot as well, like GitHub Copilot, for instance. But it's also right in there. So you can just use that. It's slightly different from Visual Studio Copilot and VS Code, but not that much, I think.
No, and it's the gap is also closing. I think if you're on the Insiders, which is our preview release, for you to get early access to the bits of Visual Studio, you'll see that it's getting better so much faster now. And so I'm on internal builds and I'm having an absolute fantastic time. I just think that the quality has gone up so much, and the speed and the execution, everything is just better. So I'm very, very happy about that. And so you're going to see that gap closing, but it's not going to close completely. It never will, because we are targeting other things. So you were mentioning the debugger. We have probably, arguably, the best debugger in the industry. And there are things we can do that no one else can do because we have that debugger. And if there are ways we can tie AI into the debugger that makes you even better at debugging. Yeah. Right? It's about returning power to you. Because how do you make sense of like some issue you're having in some sort of async call where you don't know exactly what the issue is? Maybe you run stuff in parallel on background threads, and it can be really hard sometimes to debug really complicated things. So how do we use AI to solve that problem? We haven't been able to solve it before. There are certain problems that you can't solve in a deterministic way. Yeah. And everyone's app is different. So debugger scenario is very is an obvious thing that we can add special value through AI. Now, other IDs and editors out there cannot do that because they don't have a tight integration to a really powerful debugger. So we have an edge there, and we're leaning into that because that actually is something that's a very pro use case. There are other things about unit testing, for instance, that lends us up very well to that. Creating new projects from scratch, again, is something that you can't do in a deterministic way. You have to have some sort of AI because everybody's project is different. So there are certain things that we're looking into, like if you want to create a new website, I'm just making this up, right? Let's say you want to build a new website. You want to build one, you have a customer that wants a bakery website for their new bakery, right? So you can go in and say, file new project, and you can choose ASP.NET Web Application. And that gets you kind of to like a hello world type of situation. And then you have to do the whole bakery thing. But what happens if you go and say, hey, I want a bakery website, right? And you can then be asked for clarification. Hey, do you want, an app to go with that for like return customers? So there's a loyalty program. Do you want, it can start asking you all those questions, right? And so your starting point when you're done scaffolding and have to go to work is like much closer to the end result than it was in the past. And Visual Studio has this rich templating mechanism, right? We've always had that.
Yeah.
Text editors don't have that, so they can't lean into it in the same way we can. So it's about leaning into some of those things that makes Visual Studio Visual Studio. It's not just about like the chat and, it's also about that, but it's not only about that. It's also about the special things in Visual Studio.
Yeah, and I like that. That's why I still use Visual Studio and also with AI, because there when I hit an exception and the debugger pops up, then I can click my Copilot thing and I say, help me with this exception. And then it can actually read the variables and all the things around there and use that as context, which I cannot do yet, maybe in Visual Code. And I don't know if that will ever happen because there's not a strong link there with the debugger.
Yeah. It is something we're looking at, but that's exactly right. So I think Visual Studio is the tool and will remain the tool for developers who really value code as an asset. Like there are certain code that's not an asset. That's just an artifact.
Yeah.
Like if you write proof of concept, prototypes, it could be side projects, small things, throwaway things, internal tools or whatever. You don't really care about code. Like you don't have to maintain the code for years to come as a team of engineers. If all your interaction with the code is that it just generates and you just ask the AI to fix it if there's an issue and you don't actually look at the code and you don't really care, you can use whatever tool you want. You can use Visual Studio. You can also use the CLI. You can use whatever, and you're going to have a great time. But if code is an asset to you, if it matters how it's formatted, if you're going to review it, if there's pull requests and peer reviews and all those type of things where it really matters that it's high quality and has a high maintainability score and all that type of stuff, Visual Studio is for you. Like that is like hands down. That does not change because AI comes into the picture. In fact, we're going to double down on a bunch of these things so that even if you're using AI, we're going to make sure that you're going to have kind of that enterprise grade code quality that you had when you wrote everything by hand. And so you might still write a bunch of stuff by hand, but you might also have some things written by Copilot, let's say, right? And so have all that done in a way that's like exactly how you or your team want it to look and act and all the type of stuff. And so it's about quality. It's about seeing your code as an asset. That's really what Visual Studio is about.
And how do you do that yourself? Like when you write extensions, for instance, do you still write code by hand or do you just tell the AI to do it?
I tell the AI to do it mostly.
Yeah.
I have, but the thing about it, but hang on. It's because that none of my code goes into Visual Studio. It never did, even when I wrote it by hand, right? The engineering team, they have their quality gates. They have a bunch of things that they do that I don't have to do when I write an extension. I don't fall under those same quality concerns or whatever, right? And I don't have to maintain it over time to the same extent. Like I don't have to have a whole team to be able to, maintain it for years down the line. It's just me.
Yeah,
So,
but
So I don't care. For me, a bunch of my code is just an artifact.
Yeah, I get that. And there's no shame in generating code. That's kind of what the AI does. So
It's funny because first of all, I agree, but I will say I would not, the way I do it, the way I code with just the AI, I would not consider an asset. Like I would not be someone that'd be proud of it or present it to my team and say, hey, can you do a code review here? Like I was like, no, don't review this code. I know I can go through it and be like, no,
Yeah.
I don't like it, but I don't feel like I need to. And so in this case, I don't need to.
Yeah.
But every project is different, right? Everything is different. What I really like about Visual Studio is I stay in there, and when I debug, I have to debug it. Like, I'm still the best debugger between me and the AI, hands down.
Yeah.
No matter who wrote the code, I can debug And I'm not even a great debug person at all. I'm not very low level. But I'm still better than the AI. So having it all happen in Visual Studio, I'm not using the CLI. I use it sometimes for some other things, but not for writing code. I use Visual Studio. I want to see what happens. I still want to understand what's going on because I still need to steer it because I know what some of the caveats are for in the Visual Studio extensibility model. I know some of these things. And using my expertise, I'm the domain expert here over the AI. Even though it knows stuff I don't know sometimes, I'm very impressed by it. But I'm kind of still looking at what it's doing while it's doing it and correcting it when I see that it goes down a wrong path. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be as fast. I wouldn't be as effective. I wouldn't be able to ship as many extensions that I've done. I think I've done 12 extensions in the past 4 months.
Wow. Yeah. Productivity booster. Absolutely.
Oh, I mean, But again, the only reason I'm 10x in my productivity or 5x or something right now is because I don't have that code maintainability issue.
Yeah.
Or not issue, right? It's the code is not an asset for me in this particular case.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You got it. So I wanted to ask you this. What is your favorite feature of Visual Studio?
Oh, man. Don't make me choose between my children here.
Or a favorite?
Yeah. I'm very big on the small things, the quality of life delighters. So something as simple as holding down Shift while scrolling the mouse to do horizontal scrolling in the editor. Do I use it all the time? No, but I love that it's there. The fact that I can hover over any reference to an image, like if it's a HTML file that have an image tag and then it has some sort of path, I can just hover over that and see what the image looks like. And the size of it, small things that help me answer questions that otherwise would have taken me not necessarily a long time, but a little bit of effort to find out. I'm very big into that type of stuff. I think Visual Studio is so good. All those, the big things for me has been kind of taken care of. I can do those big things. I can create WPF applications, right, that do amazing things on the desktop, or APIs for, or web files, websites and so on. So for me, it's the quality of life. Do I want to stay in Visual Studio all day long, 7 days a week or 5 days a week, right? 8 hours to 10 hours.
Yeah.
And what are the things that make me get angry or annoyed? What are the paper cuts? What are the things that, it's like your own house. If your home office you're in or whatever has a color wall you don't like, you want to change it. You're going to feel better sitting there all day long. You're going to be more excited to go to work. So I want to find, there's a correlation between that and then I think other users. So the reason I wake up in the morning, the reason I work on Visual Studio is because I want to make Visual Studio a thing that makes people excited to start their workday in the morning. And I think a lot of it is those little things. Now, those little things, you have to have the fundamentals right, no bugs, no issues that are annoying or not annoying, but blocking you. Those fundamentals have to be in place first. You have to be able to actually perform the task you want to do. And then you can add the delighter layer, that can come later. Now we work on all of those things in parallel. I think everybody does, right?
Yeah.
But those are the things that stick out to me because those are the things that make me smile.
That's lovely. Things that delight you. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe what is one thing that you think almost nobody knows about that's in Visual Studio?
I think there's a lot of things people don't know about Visual Studio. I give a talk called "Forgotten Things You Didn't Know You Needed in Visual Studio."
Oh, cool.
Because there's just so many features. If you're a web developer or something, a feature called dev tunnels is probably not one you've used. We don't see a lot of usage of it, but it's absolutely phenomenal. You're nodding. I can see what it is. But the fact that it solves that ancient, in today's world, that ancient issue where you're sitting inside your corporate firewall and you build a website and you want to see what it looks like on a phone and an iPad, all that, see how it renders correctly. And how do you do that without deploying it to like a public endpoint that you can type the URL into your device, right? DevTunnel solves that. We foot the bill so that we open a channel between your local host basically and the outside world, and you can just on any device you can access your local machine's website running right there. So that's a huge one for web development. One that I really like. General stuff that people don't use because probably they don't know about are saved window layouts is one that I'm very happy about.
I don't use that. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of people don't use it. It's funny because I use it all the time. But because I have to move from like a laptop to then into a docking station where I have bigger monitors and so on. So being able to move with one click, change your layout of where your Solution Explorer and your output window and your Copilot chat window and all those different things are laid out is super important. Because I can go from one perfect setup to the next perfect setup within the constraints I have with the monitor size and how many monitors I have and all those type of things.
Okay.
So that's huge. And in that same vein, I wrote a blog post recently. Fancy zones is a feature out of what's called Microsoft Power Toys. It allows you to take any window and like snap into like certain positions around the screen. Windows have some of it built in. You can like snap to the right or to the left, but this one allows you to do completely customized zones. And there's a setting inside Visual Studio that can make all tool windows have be like their own window. They show up in the taskbar, but you can snap them to a fancy zone. So if you have multiple monitors, you can like just detach like Solution Explorer, Test Explorer is a very common one because people want to expand that, have it out large. Just put that over on a separate monitor and you can like snap it into place. You can maybe have it side by side with something else that you want to look at on that secondary monitor. And so people don't know you can do that. It's not enabled by default because I think that most people don't have that setup or that need. And a lot of people do. And so finding that setting is really nice. Just search for the word float in the settings.
I'm going to try that one. That's cool. Okay, cool. So that's already a lot of stuff. Maybe a last topic that we can go into. I really like that we now have Visual Studio 2026 because it's beautiful. It's snappy. Finally, it's just lovely. I create Pluralsight courses, and I'm just about to create a Pluralsight course about debugging and testing for 2026. And then I heard there's a Visual Studio 2027 coming. So is that true? and what's in it?
Yeah, that is true. And there's Visual Studio 2028 and 2029 and so on. So every year, starting with the 2026 release in November of 2025, every November, we're going to rev the version number to be the next year's version. So Visual Studio 2027 we will release that in November of 2026 and so on and so forth.
Okay.
But it's not going to be a side-by-side install. Right now you can have 2022 and 2026 installed side by side.
Yeah.
That's not what this is. Think of this as now Visual Studio's evergreen.
Okay.
It's an in-place update. You just take the next, so when you reach November and you have Visual Studio 2026 and it says, hey, there's an update, just like you have today, it says, hey, there's an update. Do you want to click update? You do that, and then all of a sudden it's just called 2027, but it's just an update. Okay. Now there could be something under the hood that's different, like extensibility models, API versions, and so on could change, but it wouldn't affect you. It would affect other things. But that's happening. This is how we're doing it these days. So
good.
Yes. So it means that at some point you can just refer to it as Visual Studio.
Yeah.
Right. And the year is just a way of saying, hey, I got the April update of Visual Studio 2026. Like otherwise, how would you reason about what version it is?
Yeah.
It's very easy when you just say, hey, it's the month of 2027, right? Like
Yeah.
April of 2027, that's the update I'm on. And so it makes that version thing so much simpler.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not a huge breaking change, it's an update.
Yes.
Okay.
Gone are the days of breaking changes, knock on wood, because we separated the runtimes and the build tools, the tool sets and all that for C++ and .NET or whatever to run independently of how we version and ship updates to Visual Studio, the IDE. Right? So
Yeah.
they're not detached, which means you can update the IDE without updating your build tools. And so you can always be in the latest feature set, but then whenever you're ready, your team is ready, you can update your tool sets. And that's important because, when we ship Visual Studio on a monthly basis, we want you to take those updates. You also probably want to take those updates, but you couldn't in the past because you said, no, I have to be on this old version because we're only running on, this version of the C++ tool set or whatever. And so now those are separate and they update on their own cadence and Visual Studio supports it all. That's
Very
how
cool. Okay. And are there any very exciting new features coming, like big things that you can talk about?
I think we have a lot of stuff cooking right now. A bunch of AI tools, a lot of refinements, a lot of delighters coming out,
Mm.
a lot of fixes. We're fixing more bugs now than we ever have before. It's not because people are reporting more bugs. It's because our focus has been changed a lot over the past 2-3 years to really focus on what the users are asking us to do. Right.
Right.
You could think, oh, why didn't you do that before? Well, reasons, bad ones. So it's like that's something we're really keen on. Like, what are the things we can do to put a smile on people's face? How can we lean into the strengths of Visual Studio? I think you're going to see more coming in. Like, we're going to continue evolving the debugger. Like, it's just getting better and better all the time. But there are other things that's going to be better. I think you're going to see test different ways. Unit testing is going to be improved. Stuff like reviewing code, like PRs, that type of stuff, is going to be improved a lot as well. And the reason for that, of course, is that, when you have AI, writing parts of your code base, you need to have guardrails in place, right? So that's why unit testing all of a sudden becomes this very important thing where that has to be top notch. So you can have your guardrails ready. Otherwise, you can't really unleash agents to do work if you can't have some sort of trust that it won't break stuff.
Yeah.
But everybody benefits from that. Everybody has a better unit testing. That's kind of where that's kind of the balance I was talking about in the beginning. We're trying to look at how can we make everybody better, but also like by leaning into what Visual Studio is already good at and the use cases you use Visual Studio for, and then how can AI then augment that to make it even better for people who opt into that, right? So PRs, like reviewing code, making sure that your code is like, it would also be nice if you can, before you commit, you can make sure that all your coding styles, code standards and all that has been taken care of so that you don't spend time reviewing code and you just look at code styles. It turns out, according to GitHub, they did a survey or some sort of stuff some years ago. I think it was 25% of code reviews are spent on coding standard.
Oh, okay.
So it would be really nice if we could just get rid of that, by having it done automatically or having it done while you write the code or whatever it is. And so that benefits both the agent work, that it will write according to your standards, but also for your own stuff. So you don't waste 25% of code reviews thinking about that aspect.
Yeah. Okay. Well, those are all great features. Quality of code, so that you can unleash agents to just write stuff. And then you can review it properly, you can test it properly. All those things are super important. And the debugger as well. That I like that a lot because I use that all day. So that's great.
And then you're going to continue to see updates to all sorts of features. Also, like hot reload is getting better and faster. HTTP file features are getting better and more pretty and all the time. So everything is going to be lifted. Like we're going to make everything better. But I just mentioned a few kind of key areas that we're very interested in because it fits that sweet spot between people using AI, people use it occasionally, and people who don't.
Yeah.
Everybody wins when we do those balanced things. And so there are some big buckets that like falls like right into that.
Okay. Cool. Well, I look forward to all that stuff. It will come. I will just update Visual Studio and boom, it will be there at some point.
Yeah, get the insiders. You might already be on it, but maybe the listener out there are just using the stable channel, which is cool too. But if you really want to get early access to all the latest and greatest, you're going to be a month ahead of the game. We released the insiders a month ahead of the stable channel, so you kind of get a heads up there. And you'll see that there's so much churn every day. I get the daily builds inside, and like every day it's getting like you can just tell it's better every day. It's small things, sometimes bigger things, and so get the insiders. I think you'll enjoy it.
All right, I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. Is there anything else that you want to share, like where people can find you personally?
On Twitter, I think that's or X rather. I think that's the most direct. So my Twitter handle is just M Kristensen on X, and I keep it to pretty much just Visual Studio stuff. So there's I do a lot of like teasing new features, screenshots I just get from the engineering team. And so if you want to see what's right now, what do we have on the internal builds, what's coming, even before it hits the insiders, you wanna follow me on X. I spill all the secrets there.
Okay. So everybody go look there and connect there. All right.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much for talking with me today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.